Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunda Vihari Jaya Radha Jaya Kunda Vihari Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunda Vihari Jaya Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunda Vihari Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivraj Kacharya Stotra Satrasi Simhan His Divine Grace Sabai Charanara Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Sri Sri Gauranitai Ki Jai Sri Radha Govindana Dari Ki Jai Sri Krishna Balaram Sri Giriraj Govindana Ki Jai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Reading from Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, Adi-lila, chapter 8, text number 32. Swatantra Ishvara Prabhu Atyanta Udara Tanrena Bajile Kabhu Nam Hoya Nistara Swatantra Ishvara Prabhu Atyanta Udara Tanrena Bajile Kabhu Na Hoya Nistara Satantra Ishvara, the fully independent Supreme Lord. Prabhu, the Lord. Atyanta, very much. Udara, magnanimous. Tanre, unto him. Na, without. Bhajile, worshipping. Kabhuna, never at any time. Haya, becomes so. Nistara, liberation. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the independent Supreme Personality of Godhead, is greatly magnanimous. Unless one worships Him, one can never be liberated. Please repeat. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the independent Supreme Personality of Godhead, is greatly magnanimous. Unless one worships Him, one can never be liberated. Purport. Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur here remarks that one should not give up the worship of Radha Krishna to worship Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. By worshipping either Radha Krishna or Lord Chaitanya alone, one cannot become advanced. One should not try to supersede the instructions of the 6 Goswamis, for they are acharyas and very dear to Lord Chaitanya. Therefore Narottam Das Thakur sings, Rupa Raghunatha Pade Haibe Akuti Kabe Ham Bujhabe Se Yugala Periti. One must be a submissive student of the 6 Goswamis, from Srila Rupa Goswami to Raghunath Das Goswami, not following their instructions but imagining how to worship Gaur Sundar and Radha Krishna is a great offence, as a result of which one clears a path to hell. If one neglects the instructions of the 6 Goswamis and yet becomes a so-called devotee of Radha Krishna, he merely criticises the real devotees of Radha Krishna. As a result of speculation, he considers Gaur Sundar to be an ordinary devotee and therefore cannot make progress in serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Radha Krishna. Mama Jnanatimanandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmalitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master has very kindly come, forced open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I offer my most respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate garim yat kripa tamaham vande Sri Gunum Dinataranam. By the grace of the spiritual master, even a lame man can cross over mountains, a blind man can see stars in the sky, and a dumb man can recite eloquent Vedic poetry. There's a beautiful verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Samasritaye parapalavaplavam mahatpadam punya yaso murari pavam buddhivatsa param padam param param padam yadvipadam natesham. It's described there that this vast ocean of material existence becomes shrunk to the size of the water contained within the hoofprint of a calf. Very easy to step over. Even a child can step over the water contained in the hoofprint of a calf. So similarly, to cross over this vast ocean of material existence becomes so easy for Krishna's devotees by the grace of the Supreme Lord, who is the giver of liberation, Mukunda. And Parampadam, or the supreme abode of the Lord, is his future home. Not this material world where there is danger at every step. So, in this particular chapter, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami makes many very strong statements. I remember when we first started this chapter 8, I read the whole chapter, all the verses and purports, because I vaguely remembered that yes, it's in this chapter that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who was Acharya, empowered personality, makes many very powerful statements as to the identity of Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his intimate associates. And here we have another one, that forget liberation unless you worship Lord Gauranga. But you shouldn't just worship Lord Gauranga to the exclusion of their lordships Radha Krishna. You worship the Lord in his different, in these different forms under the direction of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Just like it's said that during the time of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, as he crisscrossed India, doing so many different preaching programs, he and his senior disciples, they had a policy, because in many villages and towns and cities, when they would hold big programs, that many pious persons would come. And sometimes after the programs, they would be introduced to a local famous devotee of Krishna, would be brought forward by the local people, who are often very innocent. And their policy was always to ask them, under whose direction are you serving Krishna? And sometimes, but not always, those persons would say, I'm not serving Krishna under anybody's direction, I'm serving Krishna directly. So then they would politely not take that person very seriously, because we are all serving Krishna under the direction of Srila Rupa Goswami and the other Goswamis and our acharyas, and we follow very strictly their line. And of course, foremost in that line, which is also Krishna's famous instruction in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvadi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarsanaha. Just try to understand the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. Self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So this word prapadyante in Sanskrit means surrender, but the English word and the Sanskrit word or meanings for surrender are quite different. The Sanskrit word surrender, prapadyante, denotes love and affection and respect and gratitude. When we approach a venerable senior Vaishnava, they are the emotions that are evoked, whereas the English word surrender generally denotes force. There's been a battle on a battlefield and one army is defeated, so one general, he surrenders to the victorious army on the other side. So, of course, liberation is described as the fourth goal of life, according to Vedic understanding. Dharma, artha, kama, and then moksha. When one becomes disgusted with the paltry, insignificant enjoyment of this realm, then one considers, let me now aspire for moksha or liberation. But Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he has revealed and he's drawn from Vedic literatures that there's actually a fifth goal of life, and that is prema. Prema pumarta mahan. The fifth goal of life is actually to develop love for Krishna. And that's the most ecstatic outcome any jiva can experience. There was a delightful pastime when Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu arrived in Puri and lost consciousness in ecstasy before Lord Jagannath and was taken to the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's brother-in-law, Gopinath Acharya, who had actually observed Mahaprabhu's divine pastimes in Navadvip before moving to Puri himself, was a great scholar and very elevated personality. he entered into a discussion with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya as to the true identity of Mahaprabhu. And he was fully convinced that Mahaprabhu was the Supreme Lord, because he'd witnessed the Lord's extraordinary pastimes in Navadvip, inaugurating the Sankirtan movement. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was arguing, well, the Lord only appears in 3 ages. He's known as Tri-yuga. He appears in Satya, Treta and Dwapara yugas, but he's not scheduled to appear in the Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is a very degraded age. People are very degraded. So the Lord doesn't come in Kali Yuga. So he was arguing on that platform. But Gopinath Acharya, he counter-argued that that's true for Lila avatars. But it's not true. The Lord also does appear in Kali Yuga as a Yuga avatar to inaugurate Harinam Sankirtan, the religion for this age. It's also sometimes known as Gaur Narayan. And Mahaprabhu performed many wonderful pastimes simultaneously when he appeared, and one of them was also to fulfill the coming of the Yuga avatar, and he did that very early on in the age of Kali, which we know lasts for 432,000 years, of which only 5,000 have elapsed. So in this way, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was convinced. And there are many Lila avatars of Krishna, and whilst doing research I found a list of 25. And I'm wondering if any of you want to suggest some of the 25 Lila avatars of Krishna. Anyone who gets the right answer gets an extra scoop of khichdi at breakfast this morning. Okay? Only if you want. I don't want to be accused of force-feeding anybody. And a lot of them are really confident. So even if you guess, I'm sure you'll probably get it right. Anyone know any of the 20? Out the back that we've got Ajita Prabhu. Yes? Sorry? Fantastic. You get extra khichdi at breakfast. All right. Yeah, Mohini's on the list. Mohini Murti. She's a Lila avatar. Pastime incarnation. Anyone else? I think he's on the... He is. He's on the list. Fantastic. Oh, Hare Krishna. Is okay? No, not okay. Hare Krishna. It does happen here, doesn't it? Do we have any vets? Sorry. Maybe Ajita. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Hare Hare. It flew up? Fantastic, Morris. Thank you. Yeah, we were all simultaneously. Yeah. Glass doors. They'll do that to birds. Okay. So, yes. Anyone else? Nrsingadev's on the list. Yes. He is. Fantastic. I think Lord Varaha is here also. Yes. Yes? Fantastic. There's so many. Who? Parashuram, yes. 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 Big voice? Matsya is here also? Yes. Fantastic. We're doing well. Lord Buddha is on, yes. And sorry, Prabhu? Kormadev is here also. Absolutely. Lord Ramachandra, yes. Balaram ji, yeah. We're on a real roll here. I think we've nearly got the 25. Korma Avatar, absolutely. Yes. All right. I can read the list. There's just one or two that we haven't got. So the Kumaras also: Narad, Varaha, Matsya, Jagya, Naranarayan, Kadama, Dattatreya, Hayashirsha, Hamsa. I think he may be. Hamsa, Rishabh, Prithu, Nrsinga, Korma, Dhanvantari, Mohini, Vamana, Parashuram, Rama, Vyasa, Balaram, Krishna, Buddha, and Kalki. So it's interesting because Kalki Avatar also appears at the end of Kali Yuga, right at the end. So he's considered a Lila Avatar, but he's also there right at the end of Kali Yuga. So this was a wonderful discussion. And of course, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, when he heard from Gopinath Acharya that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's maternal grandfather, Nilambara Chakravarti, the father of Sachimata, he remembered him because formerly Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya actually lived in Navadvip, and he was good friends because in age he and Nilambara Chakravarti were approximately the same age. And Nilambara Chakravarti was a great astrologer and Brahmana, so they had very friendly relations. So the Vatsalya Rasa, or the affection, paternal affection of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became manifest towards Lord Chaitanya when he realized the ancestral line in which the Lord was coming, and became greatly affectionate towards him. So this liberation, which is so easily achieved by Mahaprabhu's followers, of course, is only achieved with great endeavour by non-devotees of the Lord, great austerities. But Mahaprabhu makes it very easy in this age of Kali. Simply chanting, dancing, feasting, a little philosophy. Prabhupada was giving a lecture in Los Angeles one time where he said the process is so easy, chanting, dancing, feasting, a little philosophy, but still you cannot do it. Because it's easy in principle, but it is difficult in application to apply oneself, especially over a whole lifetime. Definitely takes some application. So, the six Goswamis, we are serving Krishna and our Gurudevs and the Vaishnavas under their direction. That is the line we're coming in. Can anyone tell me who is Srila Rupa Goswami's only initiated disciple? Correct. Thank you. His nephew Jiva. I asked Maharaj if anyone knew Srila Rupa Goswami's only initiated disciple, and Prabhu answered correctly, Jiva Goswami, his nephew. Because when Rupa and Sanatan moved from Bengal to Vrindavan on the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jiva was just a small boy. He also saw Lord Chaitanya as a lad. His father, Anupam, sometimes also known as Vallabha, had passed away at a young age. So Jiva stayed with his mother until he was approximately 20 years of age. And all arrangements were made for him to get a thorough education, basic education. But then perhaps when his mother left this world, he moved to Vrindavan to be with his two great uncles, Rupa and Sanatan. And by divine arrangement, he first wanted to visit the holy places of Lord Gauranga's pastimes in Navadvip. So he went there from Puri, or from Orissa. And Lord Nityananda Prabhu was visiting Navadvip at that time, and he took Jiva with him on Navadvip Dham Parikrama. And together they visited, and Lord Nityananda described all of the wonderful Lila Sthans, or pastime places, where he and Lord Gauranga and the other innumerable associates of the Panchatattva had performed their pastimes. And then Lord Nityananda instructed Jiva, before you go to Vrindavan to be with your uncles, you should first go to Varanasi and complete your studies of Vedanta and other subjects, associated subjects. Madhusudan Vachaspati was either a relative or a disciple of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he was a devotee Vedantist, great scholar, and he was teaching Vedanta from the Vaishnava point of view in Varanasi, Benares. So Jiva went and studied under him for some time, and then he moved to Vrindavan and took shelter of his great uncles. And it's said that at first, as was the custom, he approached the elder of his two uncles, Srila Sanatana Goswami, for initiation. But Srila Sanatana Goswami, he felt it would be better if Jiva went and took an initiation from Rupa, his younger brother. And that's exactly what happened. And Srila Rupa Goswami Srila Jiva Goswami lived in the ashram of Jiva and executed so many different menial tasks. He kept the ashram very clean and cooked and was fully engaged, and was also helping Srila Rupa Goswami edit his books. And there's a couple of very famous pastimes where it would appear sometimes our acharyas, in order to train their disciples, it would appear sometimes they give quite severe chastisements. And on one occasion, there was a famous Digvijaya, which means a world-conquering, somebody who's conquered all other scholars in all the four directions. He came to Vrindavan and he wanted to debate with the famous scholars of Vrindavan. That would increase his prestige and number of disciples and wealth and so on. So he came there and he was quickly informed that the two greatest scholars in Vrindavan at that time were Srila Rupa and Srila Sanatana Goswami. So he went to them and said, I want to debate with you. If you don't want to debate, then sign this document saying that I have defeated you. So Rupa and Sanatana weren't interested in any mundane debates. They were fully engaged researching the lost pastime places of Radha and Krishna and writing their books and performing austerities and chanting innumerable holy names every day. And also giving wonderful association to the Brijbasis. So they said, give us your document. They signed it, off he went, proudly boasting that he had defeated Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis. So this came to the attention of young Jiva, the nephew. And he wasn't at all impressed with this proud scholar. So he said, I'll debate you. And he debated him and defeated him so soundly that scholar quickly packed his bags and left Vrindavan, never to be seen again. Another famous pastime is when the great Vallabha Acharya was also residing in Vrindavan, and it would appear that he and Rupa Goswami were very good friends, and Sanatana Goswami also. They were contemporaries. Vallabha Bhatta was a great Brahmana, a great devotee of Krishna, Radha Krishna, a great scholar. He'd written a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. And on one occasion he was visiting Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Goswami asked him to just check something he'd written and give some suggestions. So Vallabhabhata, he read and he made some suggestions, and Rupa Goswami was very grateful for that. And while that was happening, young Jiva was actually fanning Rupa Goswami because it was very hot, and Vallabha as a menial servant. So he was overhearing this and listening. But as Vallabhabhata was leaving, he followed him out and he said, actually, you know, what my uncle has written is perfectly correct. No need for your suggestion. So they had a little discussion, and Vallabhabhata was very much impressed with Jiva's scholarship and his learning. And he actually accepted, yes, actually, what your uncle has written is perfectly correct. And then the next time he visited, he said to Rupa Goswami, you know that your nephew Jiva, he's a great scholar. He's vastly learned and very realized. What I said previously, he pointed out, was actually not the Siddhanta, but actually what you had written was in fact perfectly correct. So Rupa Goswami, after his guest had left, called for Jiva and said, what you did with Vallabhabhata was very inappropriate. He was a guest in our ashram. I asked him for some advice. He went back over the whole pastime. He said it was very impertinent for you as a younger to correct a more senior Vaishnava. It's known as, it's an offence actually, Mayada Bhatikrikrama it's called, to even speak in the presence of someone more advanced and learned without their permission, without their blessings, is considered an offence, such as Vedic culture. Just like we have the example of Shukadeva Goswami being asked to speak by his guru, his own father, and his Param Guru. Both Vyasadeva and Narada Muni were present when Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken. So we can surmise that Shukadeva Goswami would not have spoken without their permission and without the permission of all the assembled rishis and sages and great souls present. He was ascertained by one and all as the most qualified person to speak Srimad Bhagavatam to Maharaj Pariksit. So suffice to say, Rupa sent his disciple away for a period of time to teach him a very valuable lesson. Of course, it can be argued from both sides. What he did was correct, but anyway, Rupa was training his disciple. It's interesting because we're all known as Rupanuga Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and we're following the Rupanuga Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, but yet he only initiated one disciple, but yet he is our Shiksha Guru, our instructing spiritual master for all the followers of Lord Caitanya. Nonetheless, young Jiva was sent away for a period of time, and it's said that he found residence in an abandoned crocodile hole, some distance along the Jamuna River. And he was living in that abandoned crocodile home for some time. And on one occasion, and he was performing very severe, barely eating, and just chanting Krishna's names. And on one occasion, as was his habit, Srila Sanatana Goswami was in that particular vicinity. And the local people said, you know, there's one young sadhu, he's living near our village, and perhaps you might want to go and see him. It looks like he's performing great austerities. So Sanatan went, and sure enough, it was his nephew, Jiva. And he immediately gathered him up and took him back. And as older brother of Rupa, he very mildly admonished Rupa, or at least said that Jiva Doya, that a Vaishnava is full of compassion for the conditioned souls. And our nephew, his name is in fact Jiva, so you have to show compassion, mercy to your disciple and our nephew. So of course then quickly Jiva was accepted back into the ashram, and Rupa personally cared for him and fed him very well, and he regained his health very quickly. So we are following these exalted personalities, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, and so many wonderful pastimes are there that we can become enriched in our devotional lives. Let's see here. On the Shringa Charudasi, I read several chapters of the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the appearance day of Lord Narasimha Dev, and there's one wonderful purport there where Srila Prabhupada tells the story of another great personality who appeared in the time of Lord Caitanya, and Prabhupada draws a wonderful comparison between Hiranyakashipu, who thought he had received enough benedictions from Lord Brahma that he would be immortal, but not quite. And just to link together how life in this material world is flickering, chanchalam. It's sometimes we're prosperous and sometimes we're poverty-stricken. The demoniac mentality, we know from Bhagavad Gita, so much wealth do I have today, and it will increase more and more in the future according to my schemes. He is my enemy and I have killed him. My other enemies will also be killed. I'm perfect, powerful and happy. There is no foundation to life in this realm except sex desire, and so on. Krishna goes to explain demoniac mentality, as opposed to divine mentality, which he assures Arjuna he is. Don't worry, Arjuna, you are born of the divine mentality. So the pastime that Prabhupada tells in this particular purport, he tells the story of Subhuti Roy, who we will also read as we progress through Chaitanya Charitamrita. In his early life, Subhuti Roy was fabulously wealthy. He and his family were zamindars, or landholders. They had enormous holdings of land. It's estimated they had at least 200 men engaged in farming and agriculture and cow protection. And Subhuti Roy was managing all that. And there was one young man who was employed by him. His name at that time was Hussain Shah. But later on in life, much to the kindness of Subhuti Roy, who trained him, who was like a father figure, he actually became the king of Bengal, became known as Nawab Hussain Shah. But in his early life, this Hussain Shah, he was a member of the household, but on one occasion he, it's said, either stole money from Subhuti Roy, or he dug a well incorrectly, which became a great botheration because the whole well had to be redug the way he'd instructed Hussain Shah to do it. Anyway, corporal punishment was issued in those days. He gave Hussain Shah a good whack with a cane on his back, and it left a scar. Later on in life, Subhuti Roy became elderly, but Hussain Shah grew up, and due to political intrigue and his own ambition, he became politically very powerful, to the point where he actually became the king of Bengal. And one day his wife noticed on his back a scar and said, "How did you get that scar?" And he told the story that we've just told. And his wife, Muslim lady, she said, kill him. He's disrespected our family, kill him. So Nawab Hussain Shah said, well, I can't do that. He was like a father to me. He taught me so much. He mentored me. I'm not going to kill him. So the wife was insistent, and she said, well, at least convert him into a Muslim. So reluctantly, Nawab Hussain Shah agreed to do that, and he called for Subhuti Roy, and he poured some water from his pitcher over Subhuti Roy and said, now you're a Muslim. And Subhuti Roy, such was casteism in India, in Bengal 500 years ago. This was considered a very significant, terrible thing to happen to any pious Hindu. So Subhuti Roy, he decided there and then, because he was getting a little older, to leave home and to journey first to Varanasi and to consult some learned brahmanas as to what he should do for the rest of his life. And the first advice he got was, you should drink boiling hot ghee and give up your life. So Subhuti Roy wasn't particularly impressed with that situation. He thought, I'll get a second opinion. So it just so happened that Mahaprabhu was staying in Varanasi at that time. Sanatana Goswami was also there, Tapan Misra and Chandrasekhar Acharya. So he went to the Lord and he said, what should I do? This is my situation. And Mahaprabhu said, no need to drink boiling hot ghee. Just go to Vrindavan and chant Hare Krishna. So that's exactly what Subhuti Roy did, and he left. He spent the rest of his days very happily in Vrindavan, and because he'd formerly been a mercantile man, very industrious and productive, he didn't just live as a beggar in Vrindavan, but rather he used to go into the 12 forests of Vrindavan and collect dry fuel wood, Prabhupada used to call it, and bring it to the marketplace and sell it. And in that way he maintained himself. And not only that, he made enough money to buy fried chickpeas and also oil. And whenever any Bengali Vaishnavas would come to visit the sacred Vrindavan Dham, he would offer to give them oil massages and feed them. So he was a wonderful personality in the pastimes of Lord Caitanya. So this is the demoniac mentality which we want to try and avoid. And the purport, of course, that Prabhupada makes there is, even a demon gets everything that they think they want, they actually want more. I think Ramai Maharaj made the point in one class. There was some famous multi-billionaire was once asked to sum up his philosophy of life, and he, in a short amount of words, and he said, more. Even the multi-billionaires, they still want more, so much greedy. So even Hiranyakashipu got what he thought was benediction. He wasn't satisfied. He still wanted to ultimately take over Lord Brahma's planet, King Indra's planet, and so on. So I'll stop here. Any comments, questions, or corrections, please?
Just a little curious question. We mentioned the ashram of Srila Rupa Goswami, and is that a physical ashram? Because we also hear that they used to live on the tree every night.
Yes, that's for some point early in their sojourn in Vrindavan, it would appear that they were living under trees and just travelling. But at some point after the famous deity of Govindji was rediscovered, as we know, one of the original deities installed by Braja Nabha, the great grandson of Sri Krishna, then a temple was built. So exactly where the ashram, or whether they were residing in that temple of Govindji, I'm not sure. Maharaj, any?
I think that Well, after that temple was there, it's an ashram, nearby the temple.
Yes. Yeah. So, and that's interesting too, how the Govindaji temple, but that's another story for another another class. But anyone else, a question or a comment? All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.